It always starts the same way. She looks at you, not really at you though, more like through you. Not as you are, but as who you could be, who she hopes you might become. And for a moment, it feels special, like you're finally being seen. But take a closer look. Is it really you she's seeing? Or is it just a version of you she's created in her mind? That little flicker in her eyes. You think it's love, maybe even admiration. But if you're honest with yourself, it feels more like you're being watched, judged, sized up, like a mirror she's polishing, not to reflect you, but to project something of herself. You're not being understood, you're being evaluated, and most guys never notice it, because it feels good at first. It feels like purpose, like maybe you've been chosen, but what if you haven't been chosen for who you are, only for the role she's imagined you playing in her internal story? What if love, as you've been taught to recognize it, isn't always love at all? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst who spent decades mapping out the unconscious, he saw this pattern clearly, and he didn't talk about it with flowery self-help language. He approached it with the focus of a surgeon and the weight of a philosopher. Jung believed that much of our behavior is shaped by unseen forces inside us, what he called the unconscious. It's not evil, it's just hidden, out of sight, but always active. And one of the strangest, most overlooked things he uncovered was what happens when a woman falls in love. Not with a person, but with a projection. See, deep within the psyche of every woman, Jung found what he called the animus, an inner masculine figure. This animus is made up of all the ideas, images, stories, and expectations she's absorbed about what a man should be. And here's the thing, when that animus is unconscious, she doesn't know it's influencing her. She thinks she's just falling in love naturally, but she's not loving a man, she's loving a symbol, an image that fits her internal mold. You might think she's falling for your personality, your jokes, your presence, your strength, but often she's falling for something much older, much deeper, a fantasy that started forming long before she met you. That's why sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to satisfy her, because you're not fighting for connection, you're fighting a ghost. Jung saw that when the animus is immature, it doesn't lead to deeper love. It leads to control, criticism, confusion. He described it as a kind of spiritual takeover, where the woman stops acting from her own awareness and instead gets pulled into the grip of this inner ideal. And the guy on the receiving end, he gets caught in the storm. Because we, as men, haven't been taught to recognize this. We confuse being desired with being understood. We hear, "You're different," and think it's real, when often it just means you fit the part for now. But eventually the fantasy breaks, the mask slips, the spell fades, and you're left standing there wondering what happened. She said she loved me. She said I was the one. What changed? What changed is this. You stopped playing the role. You broke character, you showed up as yourself, and that wasn't in the script. The tragedy? Most men blame themselves. They think they weren't enough. They didn't try hard enough. They lost their edge. But the truth is simpler and harsher. You were never seen in the first place, not as you. You were just filling in a role that had already been written, and once you stopped matching the lines, you were replaced. Jung didn't say this to blame women, he said it to wake us up, because this same dynamic happens in reverse too. Men project their own anima, the feminine ideal. But that's a conversation for another time. Right now, the question is this: are you living as yourself, or are you trying to fit someone else's image of who you should be? Because if you are, if you're molding, twisting, reshaping yourself just to keep someone's affection, you're not in love, you're in costume. And eventually all costumes wear thin. Jung warned us, not with rage, not with bitterness, but with the clarity of a man who had watched far too many souls drift off course. He said that when a man ignores his inner development, when he refuses to face his own psyche, he doesn't just lose touch with himself, he becomes a slave to the feminine projection. You bend, you shift, you smile when you don't want to, you say yes when you mean no, You become soft, shapeless, like wet clay, molded into whatever form she desires. But here's the catch. Even she doesn't fully understand what she wants. She's not trying to manipulate you, not consciously. She's just acting out the script written by her own unconscious animus. And you stop being a man, you start being a mask, a role, a performance, a version of yourself that's designed to keep the peace, to keep her happy, to avoid rocking the boat. And at first, it works. She praises you. You're dependable, sweet, nice, but something shifts, slowly, subtly, and then all at once. The very things you believed would make her love you start to make you invisible. Your predictability becomes boredom. Your availability becomes weakness. Your obedience becomes unattractive, and you don't understand why. But Jung did. He said the feminine instinct isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to challenge, to the edge of the unknown. A man who gives all of himself too soon, who lays his soul bare without boundaries, he doesn't come across as noble, he comes across as desperate. She can't explain it, but her instincts pick it up like scent in the air. And here's the paradox, you know it. Deep down you feel it happening, but you ignore it. Because the fear of being alone is louder than the discomfort of being fake. You'd rather lose you than risk losing her. You stay in the role, you keep performing, and every time you do, you drift a little further from yourself. Jung called this out with brutal honesty. He said that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires a kind of death, not physical death, but the death of the lies, the death of the roles, the death of the mask. He said you must die before you die, because only through that inner fire can something real emerge, something whole, something solid, but nobody tells you how lonely that path can be. Real individuation is not glamorous. It's not a montage of breakthroughs set to inspiring music. It's quiet, it's cold, it's isolating. You start seeing things others don't. You notice how often people speak in cliches. You feel how shallow most conversations are. You begin to recognize how many people are just wearing faces. And when you try to share what you're discovering, they look at you like you're the problem. You're too intense. You think too much. Why can't you just be happy? But you're not the problem, you're the mirror. And most people hate mirrors, especially when they reflect something they don't want to face. Jung spent years studying this. He watched patient after patient avoid their own shadow, the dark, rejected parts of themselves they couldn't bear to look at. And women, Jung noticed, often live in cultures that reward that avoidance. They're told they're complete, that they're intuitive, emotional, naturally virtuous, that the problem is always out there, in the men, in the patriarchy, in society. But Jung didn't buy into that. He wrote that the greatest danger for women was the unacknowledged animus, that inner masculine voice that speaks with false logic, false certainty, and false moral superiority. When she doesn't confront that voice, when she doesn't integrate it, she doesn't gain power, she becomes possessed by it. And suddenly every man she meets becomes the enemy in a war she's fighting inside herself, a war she doesn't even realize is happening. And then there's you, the man trying to help, the man trying to love, the man trying to be the exception. You think if you just love her enough, stay loyal enough, prove yourself clearly enough, she'll finally see you. But that's not how projection works. Projection doesn't care about truth. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. And unless both of you wake up, you'll just keep acting out the same script, the same drama, the same heartbreak, each of you thinking it's the other's fault, each of you missing the point entirely. Because it's not about who's right or wrong, it's about waking up. And here's the twist that hurts the most. The same woman who once looked at you like you were her hero will one day look at you like you're her disappointment. Not because you changed, but because you couldn't keep living inside the fantasy she projected onto you, and she won't even know she's doing it. Jung called this kind of psychological betrayal inevitable, not because people are cruel, but because they're unconscious. When two people enter a relationship without taking ownership of their own inner world, they're not connecting soul to soul. They're colliding illusions. You didn't lie to her. You didn't betray her. You simply disappointed the character she invented in her mind, a character she never told you she'd hired you to play, a character you never auditioned for but were expected to become. And when you failed to live up to that myth, a myth she might not even be aware she's carrying, that's when the resentment begins. Not because you're flawed, but because you're not him. The him she imagined, the him she hoped would save her, see her, complete her. And this, Jung saw clearly. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, he said, to avoid facing their own souls. And nowhere is this more true than in love. Romantic relationships for many people aren't grounded in truth. They're battlegrounds for buried fears, unlived dreams, and childhood wounds that never got closure. You think you're falling in love, but often you're just falling into possession. She's not seeing you. She's seeing the ghost of her father, the echo of her first heartbreak, the answer to a question she's too afraid to ask. And you're not immune either. You're not showing up as a whole man. You're dragging your own unmet needs, your own fantasies, your own fears of rejection into the mix. And you tell yourself, this time it'll be different. But it never is, because you haven't asked the most dangerous question of all. What if I'm the one creating this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to say they're manipulative, emotional, flaky, dishonest. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you let yourself be chosen by that kind of woman in the first place? The truth? The man who never confronts his own inner feminine world, his anima, will always be enslaved by the external one. You're not a victim, you're a volunteer. You chose to be the actor. You chose to perform. Because playing a part in someone else's fantasy felt safer than facing the silence of your own mind, felt easier than sitting in the darkness of your own unmet potential. And this, right here, is where most men check out, because this is the part where the excuses fall apart, where the comfort ends and the responsibility begins. Jung didn't offer hacks, he didn't promise quick wins or Instagram-worthy enlightenment. He offered you one thing, a brutal path, a path of solitude, a path of silence, a path where you sit with the broken, scared, angry parts of yourself until the lies fall away, until the voice in your head that whispers, "You are nothing without her," finally starts to die. And don't think that voice will go quietly. It will fight, it will scream, it will claw at your insides, trying to convince you to go back, to be needed, to be chosen again. It will tell you you're unworthy, that you'll never make it alone, that real men are loved by women. But if you stay in the fire long enough, you'll begin to hear another voice, a quieter one, a stronger one, the voice that says, you're already enough. And when that voice gets louder, everything changes, because a man who no longer needs validation cannot be controlled. He's no longer shaped by external opinion. He is no longer tempted to play a role. He becomes something rare, not cold, not distant, but real, rooted, alive, present in his own skin. And here's the twist. It's in that state, the state of inner wholeness, that women become most drawn to you. Not because you flatter them, not because you pursue them, but because you don't need them. You're no longer orbiting someone else's gravity. You've become your own center of mass. And when a woman senses that, she feels something ancient stir in her. Not comfort, not safety, but respect. She sees a man who cannot be bought, cannot be bent, cannot be seduced by illusions. And in that presence, she begins to feel her own illusions fall away. You'll see it in her eyes. She may not say it out loud, but she'll feel it. You are no longer here to be her fantasy. You are here as yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that will awaken something real in her too. But don't wait for that, because that's not your job. Jung didn't say, fix her. He didn't say, save her. He said, walk your own path so clearly, so fearlessly, that your very presence becomes a mirror for others to confront their truth. Most will turn away, but a rare few will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you've become. And once that clicks, once you realize you never have to perform again, you'll notice something strange. People will get uncomfortable around you. They won't know why. They'll just feel unsettled. because you no longer fit into their boxes. You've become unpredictable, unknowable. And society, it doesn't celebrate that kind of man. It fears him. He doesn't follow trends. He doesn't play the game. He doesn't bend to guilt, shame, or emotional pressure. He becomes untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable, because he sees through it all. And here's the final twist. The same people who used to crave your attention, the same women who once clung to your approval, will begin to resent you for not needing theirs, especially the ones still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man. They'll call you emotionally unavailable, but what they're really saying is, you didn't give me control. They'll say you're too much in your head, too analytical, too cold, too distant. But what they really mean is this: they can no longer control you. You've stepped off the stage. You've stopped reciting their lines. You're no longer playing a part in someone else's fantasy. And that's terrifying to people who only know how to relate through roles, because without the script, without the projection, they don't know what to do with you. You've stopped being a character. You've started being a man. Jung once said something strange, even poetic. The gods have become diseases. What ancient cultures once called divine possession, modern psychology now calls neurosis. And there is no sicker soul than the man who gives his identity away in exchange for validation. You think you're being romantic when you say things like, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head. He'd tell you that's not love. That's a man abandoning his own soul, handing it over to a woman and asking her to carry it for him. Because if she holds your hope, your meaning, your purpose, then you don't have to. But here's the twist. When she realizes she was never meant to carry your soul, when she sees the weight of it crushing her, she will drop it. She has to drop it. No woman, no matter how kind or loving, can hold the soul of a man who refuses to carry it himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel hurt, you'll feel abandoned, but you shouldn't. You should thank her, because in that moment, when the illusion collapses, you finally see the truth. It was never her job to make you whole. It was always yours. And now, standing in the wreckage of the fantasy, you have two choices. You can blame her, you can become bitter, you can join the angry echo chamber of broken men mocking women, resenting them, swearing them off, or you can do the one thing Jung would demand of you. You can turn inward. You can begin the brutal, lonely, liberating work of individuation, becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The woman you keep searching for out there, the perfect one, the right one, she is a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance. Every connection a transaction, every love a lie. But when you do face it, when you stop running, when you meet your own inner feminine and welcome her instead of outsourcing her, you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to manipulate. You no longer need to perform. You stand still, rooted, whole. And from that stillness, something rare happens. You stop attracting women who want a character. You start attracting women who want the truth. And you'll know the difference instantly, because when she shows up, she won't try to mold you. She won't fall in love with a version of you that only exists in her head. She'll see you. She'll stand before you, not as a goddess to be worshipped, not as a damsel to be rescued, but as a woman who has done the work. She's met her own shadow. She's confronted her own animus. She's burned through the fantasy. And that's why she doesn't need you. She chooses you. No masks, no games, no projections. She doesn't flood you with dramatic declarations. She doesn't speak the language of completion, because she's not looking to be completed. She's whole, and she's finally ready to meet a man who is too. That kind of love, Jung said, is the rarest of all. Not born out of need, but out of freedom. The freedom to walk together, not because either of you are broken, but because both of you have chosen yourselves first. But let me be honest with you, most of you will never get there, not because you can't, but because you'll quit, you'll settle, you'll stay in the role. You'll keep chasing the fantasy, keep feeding the lie, because the truth still feels unbearable. But if you don't quit, if you keep walking, if you keep stripping away the false layers you built to earn love and approval, one day you'll arrive at something terrifyingly beautiful. You'll arrive at yourself. And in that moment, women will no longer be your mirror. They'll no longer be the measure of your manhood. They will become what they were always meant to be. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them, not because you need them, but because you choose to, from strength, from clarity, from a place that knows without apology exactly who you are. Jung didn't give us a map. He gave us a warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will become a puppet in the hands of other people's projections, especially the projections of women. But he also left a challenge to stop blaming women for the scripts you agreed to perform, to stop chasing wholeness in someone else's eyes, to stop waiting to be chosen, because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is a man who can no longer be controlled by illusion. He can no longer be seduced by roles. He can no longer be reduced to a character in someone else's play. He becomes what he was always meant to be, the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if you've felt this truth ripple through your chest, don't let it stop here. Don't just consume this. Live it. Like this video, share it with another man who needs to hear this, and subscribe if you're ready to break free, because the world doesn't need more men playing parts. It needs more men who are fully awake. Help us wake them up, one man at a time.